What's up guys, it's Wally. Welcome to the new VGC channel. Today what we're going to be doing is a tier list of all the mythical Pokemon that you guys will be seeing in Series 13 of competitive VGC in Sword Shield in 2022. Now if you guys haven't heard yet, just a couple weeks ago, Pokemon did release a brand new rule set for competitive VGC, which is Series 13. Now, the really interesting thing about Series 13 is the fact that not only are we allowed to have as many restricted Pokemon on our team as possible, but we finally get the chance to use our mythical Pokemon as well. Now, the interesting thing about that isn't necessarily the fact that mythical Pokemon are, so much more overpowered than other Pokemon or the other restricteds or anything that are out there. But it's mostly the fact that we finally get to use all of those event Pokemon that we've been saving up over the years, right? I mean, those usually just kind of sit around in the box, or we get to use them in our playthroughs, but never really in competitive VGC. So it's going to be an extra little wrinkle that we throw in there, and the fact that we get unrestricted restricteds, as many as we want, it's going to make it really interesting. You guys are going to see some really crazy teams. And of course, some of those teams are going to have some of these mythicals, so hopefully this will kind of help you guys out and be a guide of what mythicals can really kind of help out on certain teams and where they kind of rate, compared to each other. Now, quick disclaimer, like I said, they're not necessarily overpowered compared to the other restricteds that are in the format or anything like that. So, this tier list is kind of how they relate to each other, not necessarily how they relate to all of the other Pokemon that are available in these games. So, if one Pokemon here is an S tier Pokemon, that doesn't necessarily mean it's S tier when you include all the restricteds and all of the other Pokemon that are available. It's just an S tier compared to all the other mythicals. So, I'm not necessarily saying that that Pokemon should be on your team, but in certain instances, it might be really great for the team. So we'll get into this tier list, but before we do, if you are new here, you did see this video in your recommended, please make sure to go down and hit the subscribe button. Really helps out the channel. If you guys do enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like too. But let's get into this tier list. And what I will do is I am actually going to take my face cam out of this so I don't block the entire tier list and a couple of the things that we might actually go to look at the stats of the other Pokemon. So let me hide my face camera. Now, also, before we do dive into this as well, if you guys haven't seen the rule set, I will link the rule set from Celebi down in the description. So if you guys want to check it out, make sure to follow that link. It'll give you all the rundown of all the rules and the Pokemon that are allowed in this. Because as you guys can see, down in the NA row, there are 8 Pokemon that are not allowed in this format, unfortunately. And those, of course, are Diancie, Manaphy, and, of course, its pre-evolution, Darkrai, Shaman, Arceus, Meloetta, and Hoopa. But we do have 14 other Pokemon that are eligible for this. And I think we're going to go kind of in order of how they were introduced in Pokemon itself. So we will start with Mew. Of course, Mew is one of my favorite Pokemon because I do have a bit of a Gen 1 bias. But I will be as objective as possible here. Because I would love to put Mew in the A tier. However, I think he is safely going to be here in the B tier. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that. Of course, unfortunately, it is a Psychic type, so the presence of all the Dark type Pokemon, the Ghost type Pokemon, really kind of makes it difficult to put him, on any certain team, especially since you see so many Darkrai, Cali Shadows, and Pokemon like that. As you can see, though, his stats, kind of like all of the mythical Pokemon from the first couple generations, are 100 across the board, which make it really interesting when you take into account the fact that it has access to every single TR, TM, HM, even though those don't technically, I guess, don't exist anymore, and move tutor moves in the game. So it can learn anything. So it'll make it really unpredictable. So really, you don't know what it's going to do. It could always go out there and be a speedy or bulky support mon, with any status move that you want. Could have Toxic, Thunder Wave, Will-O-Wisp, or anything like that. You can always put Helping Hand on it if you want, and a plethora of other moves too. Plus, since it is 100 in just regular attack and special attack, you don't really have to give your competitor an indication as to whether or not it's going to be a physical or a special mon. And since it can learn any move it wants, you have access to everything that you could possibly want. Also, a really interesting thing is that it has access to transform. So essentially, you can make Mew any Pokemon you want it to be. Well, within reason, within whatever Pokemon is on the field, I guess. So if you want, you could always put a Choice Scarf on it and go ahead and use Transform into, a lot of different Pokemon that you could see out there. Anything to give you that type advantage, But, of course you kind of need that to be a first turn setup. It's not like Ditto where, if it has Imposter, it'll learn the one that's directly across from it. But, of course, the benefit of having Transform is you get to select which Pokemon you want to transform into. Also, the really awesome thing is the fact that it does get synchronized, which if you do get burnt or poisoned or put to sleep or any other status effect, whatever Pokemon caused that to Mew will have that kind of mirrored back to them. So you get put to sleep, I guess Mew gets put to sleep, then that Pokemon who put Mew to sleep gets put to sleep as well. So I think with that, with the fact that it's so unpredictable and you can do so many things with it, I feel like that warrants it being in the B tier. Even though, I really, really want to put it in the A tier, but I know putting it there would just be my Gen 1 bias. So I think putting it in B tier would be the best way to kind of go. Now, next is going to be Celebi, of course. Now, I love Celebi. Celebi is adorable, and like all the other Mythicals, as you guys can tell, has 100 across the board. Like I said in the first couple generations, that's kind of how it was. But, however, I hate to say it, but we got to put Celebi down in the D tier. I love Celebi. It's adorable, but it's a Psychic and Grass type, right? That gives Celebi 7 weaknesses, including one that's a 4x effectiveness, right? And that's Bug. And I get it, it's Bug, it's not incredibly common or anything like that, but it's still something to consider. But in addition, the move pool that Celebi has isn't necessarily great, right? It's, as you guys can kind of tell, it is a lot of grass, psychic types. The only fire type it gets really is Sunny Day. You'll have one bug, one dark, and things like that. Maybe Shadow Ball. But really, as you guys can see too, there's a very, very, very heavy bias towards its special attacks. So Celebi, again, while cute, as you can see all of those weaknesses there, and even though, again, it does have 6 resistances, I don't necessarily think that warrants putting it above a D tier. And again, its ability kind of makes it great too because, Natural Cure, that's great. If it gets poisoned, gets put to sleep, switch it out, it cures it. However, that doesn't really give much benefit to any of its allies or anything like that, so it doesn't really create the best, I guess, synergy with anyone. So, unfortunately, again, we do have to put Celebi down in the D tier. Next up is one of my favorite Mythicals, I gotta say, and that is Jirachi. And again, I don't want to have any kind of bias here because I do love Jirachi. And as much as I would love to put him higher, or put it higher, I do have to put it in the C tier. I know, it's kind of bordering on B, it's bordering on B. I think that might just be my bias, but again, I am going to have to put it down in C tier. Again, as you guys can see, all 100s across the board and all that. And plus, you do get the added benefit over, like, Celebi and all that, of getting that additional steel typing, right? So you get all those resistances in addition to Jirachi just being a really awesome Pokemon. Fortunately, pardon me, you do have that 4x resistance to Psychic, along with the other 8 resistances, the 1 immunity and all that kind of stuff. Plus, its ability, which is Serene Grace, gives it a boosted chance of having, like, added effects happen after moves. So thus, like, flinches, statuses, things like that. Sounds great, right? That's awesome. But look at its weaknesses, right? That's where it starts to kind of break down. Having weaknesses to fire, ground, ghost, dark, like, it really makes it hard to throw out there against the types of, the likes of, like, Groudon, Charizard, Cali Shadow, Lunala, Yveltal. Like, I can go on for days talking about a lot of Pokemon that could really kind of screw Jirachi up here. And while it does have a pretty decent move pool and all that, including having, like, access to all the punch moves, which, honestly, I think is extremely adorable to think about. I mean, imagine Jirachi with those, look at those, just, like, the tiny, like, fists and everything, just throwing punches at everyone. I think that's adorable. But its best steel move, or at least its strongest steel move, which is Doom Desire, is essentially just a steel future sight. Which is cool, don't get me wrong, But honestly, like, I want something that's going to hit right away. I mean, it does have a couple other steel moves and all that kind of stuff, but its strongest one, you know, really, again, is just kind of Future Sight. So while its typing and ability are really cool and a really big step up from Celebi, I do unfortunately have to be really difficult on it and say that Jirachi is going to have to be a C tier because it's really difficult to bring it out to a lot of the common matchups that you might see on the ladder. Now here comes another crowd favorite, and that is going to be Victini. And while it is not just a crowd favorite, it is also a favorite of mine. Not necessarily from like a Pokemon perspective, because I do like Jirachi a lot more than I like Victini, but Victini from a competitive standpoint would be really, really cool as well, which is why it is going all the way up in that S tier. Now, Victini is the last Pokemon on this list that has the 100 stats all the way across the board. But this is someone who I think is a top tier option over the other three. So while its typing has a lot to be desired, of course, because it's weak to, you know, common typings that you'll see out there with like water, ground, rock, ghost, dark, and all that, it has a lot of added benefits too, right? Its ability here is Victory Star, which basically boosts the accuracy of you as Victini and your ally who is out there with you as well. And that increases it by 10%. And while 10% might not sound like a lot or anything like that, it does make a huge, huge difference. Because think about this. If you put it out there with, you know, Groudon or Kyogre, especially Groudon, because what we like to call Pessimist Blades only has an 85% chance of hitting, right? But as we've seen in plenty of battles, 85% doesn't necessarily mean 85%. It's like about a 50-50. So being able to have Victini out there to use Victory Star, it'll increase the accuracy from 85% up to 93.5%, which, yes, again, isn't perfect, isn't 100%, but is definitely a big improvement and gives you that extra boost of accuracy. Also, that makes Victini's signature move, which is V-Create, which is typically a 95% accuracy move, pretty much a guaranteed hit. So that'll pretty much go up to over 100% accuracy, which is really, really awesome. And plus, with a base power of 180, adding the stab in would make it about 270 base power. But if you add in the fact that, you know, it could be in the sun, because, you know, you could end up putting it on a sun team, that would almost be a guaranteed one-hit KO on a lot of Pokemon, including Zacian, potentially even Groudon, and other Pokemon like that too. So that's why I think that Victini would be really, really great for a sun team. Plus, I know another strategy that would be a lot of fun would be running Final Gambit. So essentially what Final Gambit does is it deals damage equal to the remaining HP of the Pokemon that you're using. So if Victini is at full health, and you guys see that Victini does have the base stat of 100 for HP, which means that if you do max out like the HP with EVs and everything like that, and you put a Choice Scarf on it, you could easily one-hit KO a lot of other Pokemon as well. Because think about it, there are some Pokemon that don't invest a lot into HP, and if you're able to take it out first before it's able to even get a move, and Victini is full health, dude, you are taking 2 Mons off the field. And even though it would be pretty bad to lose Victini, because Victini is a great Pokemon, and with V-Create makes it really, really strong, still, it might be more beneficial to take off their strongest Mon on the field and be able to make it a 3-on-3 battle between your 3 strongest and his 3 weakest. So it makes a lot of sense with that. But I do think that it would work really, really great on a Sun team. And that's really why I think that Victini would be a really great Pokemon for this and up in the S tier. Now we come to our first Pokemon that doesn't have the base 100 stats across the board, and that is our buddy Keldeo here. Now, unfortunately, the first Pokemon with non-base 100 stats across the board does leave a little bit to be desired, I guess, which is why, unfortunately, it is going to go in C tier and is going to go under Jirachi there. Now, while it does have a great boost in special attack and speed, as you guys can see here with Keldeo, because it is at 129 base in special and 108 base in speed, its move pool is not incredibly deep, and contains a lot more physical attacks than special. And when you're running a 129 base special attack and a 72 base regular attack, yeah, you don't necessarily want to have to deal with the physical attacking, right? Plus, the overwhelming majority of the moves that we learn are either water or fighting, as you guys can see here. You'll see maybe a steel, a couple flying in there, bug every once in a while, a rock, but for the most part, it really is just water and fighting, pardon me. But I guess the one good thing is that you do have a flying move both on the special and the physical attack side. That way, depending on which way you want to go with Keldeo, you do have a max airstream option if you do want to speed yourselves up. But regardless, you're not really going to be seeing it Dynamaxing incredibly often. Unless that really is your plan and you really want to do that, which I'm sure I inevitably will with one team, just to do it because I said that it couldn't be done. You're not really going to see it Dynamaxing often. Also, the other really, really confusing thing about Keldeo is its ability, which is Justified. Justified is an awesome ability. There's a really great strategy that really ups your attack with Justified and with using a beat-up strategy. However, again, with Keldeo really being a big special attack mon, you are giving Keldeo an ability that really benefits physical attack mons. Now, the one good thing about this is then you can actually have two different builds for Keldeo. You could do just a special, you can do a special set, or you can do a physical one, but in that case, you do have to use the beat-up strat every single time. So, unfortunately, you're kind of locked into one strategy if you end up going out with a physical Keldeo. You could always go with a mixed attacker, but, again, that kind of limits, the amount of moves that you can put on it. And with only being able to choose 4 moves for Keldeo, as with every other Pokemon, you kind of want to specialize in one thing. So, even though it has an awesome ability, it's got a really great special attack stat and really good speed, unfortunately, and I guess with the limited move pool and the baffling choice of ability, Keldeo is safely in the C tier with me, and unfortunately underneath Jirachi as well. Next is going to be Genesect. Now, Genesect, and while, again, this may be a little biased because I am a big fan of, a Pokemon called Scizor, and Genesect is essentially a Scizor on steroids, I kind of feel like I really want to put it really, really high, but because of the benefits that it has, as much as I want to put it S tier, and with the benefits, I think I need to put it A tier. I think we're going to have to put it A tier. I really do love Genesect, but you can see the stats here. Like I said, Genesect really is kind of Scizor on steroids, right? They're both bug steel types, but Genesect has far better defense and special defense spread, and a better attack and special attack spread, thus making it much harder to predict from a move type standpoint. So, plus with its ability download, it gives it a boost to attack it gives it a boost to either its attack or special attack based on what your foe's biggest weakness is. So basically, if it's, stronger in special defense, it will give you a boost to your attack, whereas if it's stronger, or if it's weaker in special defense, then it'll boost your special attack. I know, I made that really confusing, but trust me, it's a really, really great ability. I know the Porygons get it as well, so it's really great, and especially with a hard-hitting Pokemon like Genesect, it really has a lot of really great benefits. And again, since it is 120 for both attack and special attack, you could make it a mixed attacker, right? Really makes it a big terror from that perspective, because you do get the boost in whichever attack is better for you against that Pokemon. So if you do, like I just said with Keldeo, it's tough putting special and physical moves on a Pokemon since there are only 4 moves that you can, theoretically put on a Pokemon. But with Genesect, it might actually make sense. Again, because you don't know if the Pokemon that you're going against is going to be better with its special defense or regular defense. So going into it, you can really, kind of hone your strategy based on what your opponent sends out. And you don't really have to stick to just one specific strategy. So it's really awesome. Plus, it has a move pool that is super, super deep, really, really well balanced, and really has great coverage. So it could be really, really hard to deal with. The only things that are really kind of holding it back from S tier, though, really are this right here. That 71 base HP is pretty bad. Like, you kind of see that with Scizor as well. That's really its biggest weakness. Its biggest weakness. Also, it's great that it has 8 resistances as well, plus 1 immunity. But it does take neutral damage from common things like water, ground, flying, and dark. And I think worst of all, it does take 4x damage to fire, right? And that's tough with all the Sun teams that are running around, with the Charizards and everything like that. So you're going to see a lot of those on the ladder. So if you bring Genesect, you don't want to bring him to those battles. So that could be a big problem. But otherwise, I think Genesect is really good enough and could be really strategically good enough to be on a lot of teams, which is why it's going to be there at the A tier. Next, one of the Pokemon from my favorite generation of Pokemon, Generation 6, is Diancie. Now, I know this is a Pokemon that a lot of people are torn on. You know, some people are really high on it, some people are extremely low on it. Don't get me wrong, they both have very, very valid points. But I'm going to have to split the vote here and put it in C tier. All right, I know that's kind of a cop-out. I understand that, and I'm really sorry about that. But I definitely do see a lot of issues with it. But there are a few cool things with it as well, right? Most notably, Diancie gets a move that Zamazenta should get, and that is Body Press. And plus the fact that Diancie has a really, really high defense stat of 150, and it has access to Iron Defense. Body Press, while not a stab move in this sense, would still do some serious, serious damage. If you ran a set like Iron Defense, Body Press, and having Trick Room, because as you can see with the base stat of 50 in speed, it is extremely low. And then having another move of your choice, you know, preferably like a stab move like Diamond Storm or Play Rough, you could really have a really great mon on your hands. Also, its ability Clear Body prevents any Pokemon from lowering its stats, so you won't really have to worry about any drops for defense or special defense or anything like that. However, that's kind of where the benefits run out. So it has a weakness to water, grass, and ground, right? And those are some pretty common types that you see. But the biggest issue is the fact that it has a 4x weakness to steel. This is really bad because that's going to go down against a lot of restricteds in the game. Zacian, Dialga, and a lot of other great steel types, or even Pokemon that have some great, steel moves on them as well. But, you don't want to go down in one shot to any of those mons. Plus, with its high, even though it has the high defense and high special defense stat, its base HP stat is only 50. Which means it's not going to absorb as much damage as you think it's going to take. I mean, it'll still absorb a lot because of its high defense and special defense, but, the lack of amount of HP in that kind of bulk makes it really, really tough. So, if you are going to bring Diancie, you got to think about 2 different items that you can really put on it, and these are really the only 2 that I can think of. Really, leftovers if you think it's going to be really, really bulky, and you're going to go with the Body Press and Iron Defense strat, because really, you don't need to put anything into, really into attack or special attack when you're using Body Press, because, hey, that really depends on your defense stat. So, you can do that and then run leftovers on it, or if you really do want to run it as an attacker or a special attacker, probably, I don't know, one or the other. But if you do that, then maybe you might have to go with Sash if you do end up seeing a steel type that is out there. And especially if you're using it as a Trick Room setter, you definitely need to put Sash on it just for good insurance. So Diancie just has a lot of weaknesses to some common Pokemon. And since there really aren't a lot of different sets to kind of run with it, it doesn't really make it very versatile, as much as I would love it to be. Which is why, I'm kind of putting it down there in like the low C tier. But you guys let me know. Let me know down in the comments. You guys have any ideas for sets with Diancie? How high are you guys on Diancie? Do you guys like it? Do you guys think you're just going to kind of push it off to the side there? You guys let me know. Now next up is another Pokemon that I am actually pretty high on, I will say. And this is Volcanion, right? I think this guy could be a real terror on the ladder, which is why I think I'm going to put it at A tier. I think I'm going to keep Genesect above it. I think. That's really tough. I'm going to put them probably on like an even playing field here. But I really, really do like Volcanion. For a couple of reasons. I mean, a lot of it is the fact of its typing. It's fire and water, right? Which is really great because that way it can actually work on both a sun or a rain team. And with Water Absorb as its ability, it really makes it to the, immune to the water type moves that other Pokemon might use into it. And also, if you are feeling kind of spicy with it and you have other Watermons on your team, or you want to put some kind of water move on your Pokemon, on your other Pokemon that are not Volcanion, you can use that as a way to heal Volcanion up, which is really, really nice. So, but also, the fact that it has 1 immunity and 3, not just 1 like a lot of other Pokemon, but 3 4x resistances. Those are to fire, ice, and steel. That makes it so much better on the ladder. And the fact that 2 of them are fire and steel, which are, a lot of types that you do see on the ladder, it would be a really, really great matchup against Charizard and Zacian and other common Pokemon of that type. It does have a weakness to Electric, Ground, and Rock. So, putting it out there against Groudon, Regieleki, Zapdos, and Pokemon like that isn't necessarily going to be feasible. It wouldn't be fun. You definitely wouldn't have a fun time with that. But really, that's the main thing that holds it back from being an S tier in my eyes. Otherwise, I think it's a great matchup in a lot of situations. Like I said, it could really work in both Sun and Rain teams. And like I said, again, just a great matchup in a lot of situations. Plus, with a special attack stat of 130 and access to stab moves like Heat Eruption and Overheat, and especially since you might get the potential boost from the weather as well, it could be an extremely hard-hitting Pokemon. Slap an extra Life Orb on that, dude, you are off to the races with it. So that's exactly why it is up in the A tier. As much as I would love to put it up in S tier, I think we're going to keep it down in A. Now, I might regret not putting that up in the S tier, because I really do like Volcanion, but again, it's got a lot of weaknesses. But this next Pokemon I know is going to get me a lot of hate, because I know a lot of people are really, really high on this Pokemon, but I'm not as high on it as a lot of other people are, and that is Magearna. I know a lot of people love it and really want to put it up in the S tier, but for me, I'm going to be the rebel here, I think, and I'm just going to put it in high A tier. I mean, it's still a pretty high rating, but I know it's not S tier like a lot of other people think. But like I said, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but while it has a really, really incredible typing in Steel Fairy, which is essentially what Zacian is, you get those 9 resistances and the 2 immunities. It does have the 2 weaknesses to Fire and Ground, which are 2 very, very common typings that you see on the ladder. And while it hasn't really stopped Zacian from being a powerhouse on the ladder, Magearna doesn't really have the speed to, kind of be put in the same conversation as it. I mean, if you can get off a Trick Room before Magearna gets taken off the field, you're in a great spot. But even at a base 65 speed, there are a lot of good Pokemon that are out there that can outspeed or outslow or whatever you want to call it in Trick Room. So you're not really guaranteed to go first when you're in Trick Room, but it is better than a lot of the other restricteds that are out there. But now that I got that out of my system, there are a ton of benefits to it. So as I said, it only does have 2 weaknesses, and while those are pretty bad weaknesses, it is one of the, if not the best typing in the game. I really do think it is the best. I've always been really high on the Fairy typing, and Steel is just so huge with all the resistances that it has. But again, I think it really does have the best typing in the game. That's part of the reason why Zacian is really kind of overpowered. But other than that, it's got a really, really high special attack stat, and having moves like Zap Cannon, Fluor Cannon, Flash Cannon, all the cannons, it can really overpower a lot of other Pokemon. And especially with, a Steel and Fairy Stab with, a couple of those moves as you see with, Fluor Cannon and Flash Cannon, that's going to give you a bunch of extra damage. But I think the best part about Magearna, and I know a lot of people talk about this, is its ability, which is Soul Heart. So what Soul Heart does, despite the fact that on here it says that it only raises special attack when an ally faints, that is not true, because it raises its special attack anytime any Pokemon faints. So, if you want, and I know some people have talked about this, you can run an Explosion team with a very high attack stat Pokemon. You can protect Magearna so you can make sure that it doesn't get hit by it, and you can hopefully then take out 3 Pokemon in like in just one go, because your Pokemon explodes, and hopefully that attack will do enough to your foes so that both of them get knocked out too. So that one move right there will raise Magearna's special attack stat up 3 stages, which is essentially like a 2.5 times increase to the special attack stat, which is really awesome. So that means if you go out there with its stab moves, or you Dynamax it or anything like that, that thing's just going to absolutely crank through every single team that you can see. Of course, there are a couple that might be able to, you know, I guess beef out some of those moves, potentially, but still, it would make it really, really difficult. Plus, if you didn't want to run an Explosion strategy, which I know a lot of people don't, and I don't blame you, it could actually make your opponent think twice about knocking out your second Pokemon before they knock out Magearna. So, at the very, very least, Magearna could definitely be there as like a way to deter your Pokemon from knocking out your, say, you know, your Zacian or your Cali Shadow, your Alecki or something like that. Like, you know that they're going to go after Magearna first. And if not, then all they're going to be doing is boosting up your special attack. So really, it's kind of a win-win with that. So those boosts would make Magearna a complete powerhouse, but you do kind of need the right setup to kind of pull it off. And that's kind of why I put Magearna up here at the A tier as opposed to the S tier. It is at a very, very, very high A tier, and maybe I guess some would say low S tier, but I feel very, very comfortable keeping it there. But hey, you know what? These next couple months are going to be really, really telling, and I'm going to be interested to see where Magearna really kind of ends up at the end of the season. Next is going to be Marshadow, which is a really, really cool typing, as you guys can tell, with the fighting and ghost type. There are a lot of benefits to that. But there are a lot of things to love about Marshadow, and I'll explain those in just a second, but just to, you know, kind of do the spoiler alert here, it will be in the B tier over there with Mew. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that. Now, the best part about it, I think, is its signature move, which is Spectral Thief. So what this does is it allows you to hit the opposing Pokemon for damage and steal their stat boosts at the same time. Now, this is great, especially in a Dynamax, you know, kind of format where stats are basically boosted every turn that someone's Dynamaxing, right? And especially when you see a lot of people running Max Airstream. Yes, there are a couple, you know, a handful of moves that don't really, you know, boost stats. They, you know, make your opponent's stats, you know, get lowered, or they'll set a terrain or a weather. But a lot of them do like to run like Max Airstream to boost the speed. So that's really nice to be able to kind of steal those stat boosts from the Dynamaxed Pokemon. Plus, it being the fighting and ghost type, it allows Marshadow to hit normal type Pokemon with a super effective stab move instead of it being, you know, immune to it. And as well as it still being immune to normal and fighting type moves. So also it being fighting, you know, unfortunately it does lose, fortunately it does lose its weakness to dark type moves, thus it, you know, only being neutral damage. However, the downside is that the fighting type means that it gains a weakness to flying, psychic, and fairy moves, which, you know, kind of moves it down the list for me. Plus, for me, its lack of bulk in HP, special defense, you know, and all that kind of at 90 there, and especially its defense there at 80, which is just pretty tough, kind of means that you do kind of have to sash it. You know, there aren't many other items that you can really put on Marshadow to really make it viable. Sash is really going to be the only thing, and at that point, unless you're putting it out there kind of mid-match, really you're not going to get to use Spectral Thief. So that kind of defeats the purpose of that. So it would be kind of hard to kind of lead it, so it might be something you have to bring in the back. But either way, Marshadow really does kind of have its benefits, although it does have, you know, unfortunately some negative sides to it, and that unfortunately is why it is in B tier as opposed to something a little higher with, you know, like I said, with Spectral Thief being such a great move in the Dynamax, you know, kind of era. You would expect it to be a little bit higher, but unfortunately with its lack of bulk, you know, it does kind of have to be there meandering in the B tier. Next is a very cool and interesting Pokemon, and that is Zeraora. Now, if you asked me a while ago where I thought Zeraora would potentially be on this list, I would have said around like maybe like a B or a C tier. It's a cool Pokemon, it really is, and if we look at like its stats and everything, it's really, really speedy and has pretty good attack and special attack. But its lack of bulk really kind of makes it difficult to kind of put it out there in these recent formats. But I did just see a new strategy with Zeraora and Regieleki that I think is going to boost it up for me into the low A tier. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you guys potentially have seen this. I know some people have done this. But the strategy basically kind of revolves around the fact that you'll have Zeraora and Regieleki out on the field. What you would do is basically use Plasma Fist on Zeraora first. And so to do this, what you would have to do is essentially Choice Scarf Zeraora, and then kind of retool Regieleki to make it so that Zeraora is just 1 point faster than Regieleki, just to make sure that Zeraora goes first. So what it basically does is you do Plasma Fist with Zeraora, which basically makes it so that all normal type moves that occur on the turn into electric moves. So then Regieleki, with its speed, would theoretically be the next Pokemon who would go. And if it uses Explosion, and you are using an adamant Regieleki with Explosion would turn into an electric move. And the fact that Zeraora does have Volt Absorb as its ability, it would do nothing to Zeraora except for potentially heal it up just a little bit if for some reason it took any damage. But the fact that it would be going first would essentially mean that it shouldn't really take any damage at all. But you wouldn't take any damage from that explosion, and Regieleki with its really, really high attack stat and how fast it's going and everything like that, and the fact that it would be an electric stab move means that the other two Pokemon across the way, unless they have a Focus Sash or something like that, are going to be knocked out as well. So that's a really, really, really cool mechanic that I finally got to see, a handful of days ago, and I think is going to be really, really cool to see on the field and on the ladder. But other than that, it's not really ideal for a lot of other matchups, though. A lot of ground types, of course, like Groudon, and heck, even like Gastrodon, and even things like that. It's a really bad matchup for them, so it could spell some impending doom for them. Aside from that, though, Zeraora is a pretty great Pokemon. Only has the one weakness to ground. It's got really, really incredible speed, high attack, high special attack. But again, the thing that's really kind of holding it back from being higher on the list is its bulk. So that's what kind of sucks about it, but I still feel like it should be up there in A tier. So with a great strategy that's already been proven, I think it needs to be up there in A tier. And the fact that it really does have a pretty good move pool and a great variety of moves to choose from, it's a really great mon to have out there, but again, the bulk is what holds it back. But I really do feel like it does deserve to be there at the bottom of the A tier. Now we come down to our final, three Pokemon. I'm sorry, I kind of put Meltan and Melmetal kind of together here. But let's see, we have Meltan. Now, I like Meltan, right? It's cute, it's adorable, but if we're being completely honest, it's kind of unusable in this format. But I know some people might bring it for fun, just for the lulz and just for the memes and everything like that, so... And again, since I love Meltan and it is so cute, we do have to put it in D tier. I was going to put it in F tier because look at these stats. Come on. Base 300 total. That's kind of rough. I mean, you do get Magnet Pull, and that prevents Steel types from escaping, which could be really nice if you really want to keep like a Zacian in play or something like that, so that way it can't get pulled out or anything. And you can make sure that you do a ground type move or a fire type move into it. That would be really cool, but for the most part, Meltan really is kind of useless and unusable in this format. But because of that one really cool mechanic and the fact that Meltan is pretty adorable, it will be there down in the D tier for me. Now its evolved form, Melmetal, will be a little different. We're going to put that up there in the B tier, and I think it will be behind Marshadow. Mew might have to move down, but because I love Mew, I'm going to keep him up there. But here's Melmetal. You know, I really am kind of tempted to put it in C tier because of its horrible special defense and speed stats. But I am going to put it in B tier because, you know, I love the steel typing. I do, because it's resistances and everything like that. But it also reminds me of one of my favorite Pokemon, and one of our favorite Pokemon on the channel, and that is Stony J Stonjourner. But since Melmetal is essentially a much harder hitting, defensively bulky, but slower Stonjourner, you know, I just have a desire to use it on one of my teams, which, you know, I will definitely feature here on the channel for sure. We'll definitely make sure to make a Melmetal team. And since I do have one from Pokemon Go, you know, hey, we can always just pull that one over, so it won't be that difficult. But that, and plus the fact that it has the ability Iron Fist, which powers up all punching moves, and the fact that you can put all the punching moves on him, it does kind of make him a powerhouse. And especially if you put a Life Orb on it too, you get the added benefit from the Iron Fist as well as the Life Orb. Also, if you did want to give it all the punch moves and didn't want to give it Life Orb, you also have the option of putting Assault Vest on it. It's up to you. You know, it does have a pretty low special defense, so, you know, at a base 65 with the Assault Vest, that would almost bring it up to 100, just shy of 100, which is definitely a lot better than 65, but, you know, it's still pretty low. I don't know how much of a difference it would make, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But the downside to Melmetal really are its weaknesses, which, again, are very common on the ladder. With fire and ground, and then you'll see, of course, the occasional fighting as well. But and it's not just that too, but it also has a very limited move pool. You can see it's a lot of electric, steel, you know, normal, yeah, and mostly things like that, and some status moves and stuff like that. So Melmetal's really, really cool. I think it's great, but it's really limited move pool and everything like that. Kind of, you know, keep it a little lower on the list. Plus the fact that it really does kind of have a lack of synergy with other Pokemon. It doesn't really create the most cohesive team, so it will unfortunately have to be down at the bottom of the B tier, not quite up in A tier, but I think that does, with the typing and everything like that, does kind of save it from being down in the C tier. And last but not least, we have the rogue monkey Pokemon itself, Zarude, who is going to fit in very nicely in the C tier. And you know what? Oh man, that's so tough. We're going to leave it at the bottom of C tier, but in my mind, these four will be kind of like on the same level. All right. So there are a lot of benefits of Zarude. Not a ton, but some. So its biggest one, I think, is its ability Leaf Guard, which essentially means that when you guys are out in the sun and Zarude's out there, it protects you and your ally from getting any status. So basically any kind of sleep, burn, freeze, not that you can really freeze in the sun or anything like that, but all of those just would not hit. You know, it would just completely take it away. So it'd be a really, really great partner for sun teams. Plus, it has the signature move Jungle Healing, which in addition to healing its allies for HP as well as itself, it heals their status condition as well. So it is a really, really great support mon, as well as, like I said, being out there for, you know, a great support mon for a Sun team. Now, the downsides, though, are its 7 weaknesses and its lack of diverse options for moves. It is a ton of just grass and dark moves, some normal moves, and everything like that. You'll see in the occasional fighting move too, but really, you don't have a diverse move pool to really pull from for Zarude. And its 7 weaknesses, are pretty bad. I mean, you have to deal with fire, you have to deal with fighting. Again, you see the 4x weakness to bug, you get the 2x to flying. Again, you're not going to see much of bug or anything like that, but it is something that you do kind of have to consider when you're going out there. Plus, the other downside is that if you do end up using it for a Sun team, or if you are going out against an actual Sun team, you do have to worry about the fact that it is going to take some extra damage from those fire moves because the Sun is still out. So that is a really, really bad thing. Plus, even though it has a really, really high attack stat of 120, I feel like especially in like this series and with all of the other Pokemon that are, just kind of available for us, I think it really does kind of set up best as a support mon, kind of like what, Incineroar is, but definitely not with the moves and the overpoweredness that Incineroar kind of has. But yeah, so that's kind of where Zarude is. It really is kind of just a support mon, even though it has a high attack stat. Again, I think it would be great on a Sun team, but the only downside is you do have to worry about all of the fire moves that you are going to see with all of the Sun teams that you see out there on the ladder. And that is why Zarude is there as the bottom, unfortunately the bottom of the C tier. So there you have it, guys. So there's our final tier list here for all the mythical Pokemon that you are going to see in Series 13. Let me just read these off one more time. Up in the S tier, we do have Victini. In the high A tier, we do have Magearna, with the A tier being rounded out by Genesect, Volcanion, and Zeraora. The B tier, of course, we have Mew, Marshadow, and Melmetal. C tier, we have Jirachi, Keldeo, Diancie, and Zarude. And then, unfortunately for them, down in the D tier, we do have Celebi and Meltan. So, like I said, this is just a preliminary list. We don't necessarily know how things are going to go because Series 13 hasn't necessarily released yet. So who knows what other teams you're going to see on the ladder. This is just kind of going based off of what we saw in Series 12. But with a new rule set, you do see a whole bunch of different teams. So with how the kind of, the meta kind of shifts, that's what you're going to see with these Pokemon. So we'll revisit this in about a month or two. Probably about 2 months, so we get a full month of Series 13 kind of under our belts. And we'll kind of revisit this tier list and kind of see how it alters from where it was before Series 13 released to where it was after a lot of people have kind of built their teams and done some laddering. So guys, let me know down in the comments, what do you guys think about the list? Do you guys think some Pokemon are too high, some are too low? Do you think that I am ridiculous for keeping Magearna in A? Do you think it should have been up in S? What do you guys think about Diancie? You guys let me know down in the comments. I know you guys have a lot of great input. I think it's going to be really great. So you guys let me know what you guys think. I'm really excited to see what Series 13 has in store for us. I'm excited to see, again, kind of how the meta shifts. And yeah, it's super exciting that we finally get to use Mythicals, and I'm super excited to do it myself. But guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure to go down and drop a like, and we'll see you guys next time.